After Kevin helped the man who had been poisoned by the herbal pill, his granddaughter thanked him and left the auction hall with her companions. Isaac Holden started insulting Kevin for no reason other than jealousy. This really irritated Dalton. "Are you done talking crap?" Dalton said as he slapped Isaac in the face. "If you do that again, I'll throw you in the river," Isaac shouted angrily. He hadn't forgotten that Dalton had already knocked him down once this evening. "Why don't you try it?" Dalton snarled. He rolled up his sleeves as he walked towards Isaac. "Dear, please don't get angry," Miranda pleaded as she held him back. "Don't lower yourself to his level." Miranda was very disappointed. Nobody had talked to Dalton like this in years. This guy had no idea what he was getting into. "For my wife's sake, I'll let you go this time," Dalton said coldly. Kevin shook his head with a faint smile as he watched this scene. It took a ruthless man like Dalton to deal with a putz like Isaac Holden. Just then, Zane suddenly walked up to Kevin and patted him on the shoulder, saying, "Thank you so much. I'm sorry about what I said earlier. How about we make friends? You can call me Zane from now on." "Sounds good. My name's Kevin." He smiled and gave him a friendly nod. Zane seemed to be a lot like Dalton, and Kevin felt comfortable talking with him. They chatted casually for a few minutes, and then Kevin asked curiously, "I'm wondering about those two people, Zane. Why were you so shocked to see the woman's ID?" When Kevin said this, Zane put his finger to his lips and then pulled over to a corner where no one could hear them. "Kevin, I already think of us as brothers, so I'll tell you the truth," Zane said seriously. "That woman and her grandfather are from a very powerful underworld organization. They call themselves the Myriads, and they're interested in a bit more than herbal medications. I've heard of them, but I didn't know they were that much worse than any other groups," Kevin said in surprise. Zane nodded. "Those two aren't just ordinary members of the group either. It's not like underworld gangs have ID cards. What she showed me was an ID from the School for the Healing Arts. That means they're starting to get into some higher-level stuff," Zane continued seriously. "You should be really careful, Kevin. Now that you saved that man, you may have put a target on your back." "I'm sorry I asked," Kevin said glumly. "Take care, brother. If you need anything, just let me know. You can always count on my family's help," Zane said sincerely. The two of them kept talking until the auction was finished. Zane asked one of his assistants to bring a box for Kevin. "Please accept this as a token of the Pearl family's gratitude for your help today. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have something to deal with now that the auction is over." Kevin thanked him and opened the little box. Inside was, of course, a pearl lapel pin in a gold setting. As Kevin was looking at the lapel pin, he got a call from the body shop. They were finally finished repairing the damage to his roadster. He asked them to bring the car over and park it in the auction hall's underground garage. He wandered around outside the auction hall for a while until the driver showed up to drop off his car. As Kevin walked down to the garage, he put on the pearl lapel pin that Zane had given him. Before he reached the car, Kevin ran into Truman Anderson, Phoebe, and Isaac. "So, I see you're driving your wife's car," Isaac said loudly as he patted the car's hood. "Sorry, but I bought this car myself. I know it's just an old beater, but I like to keep a low profile," Kevin said casually. Their conversation attracted some attention from the people who were filing out of the auction hall. They couldn't believe someone would call a $3 million car an old beater. Truman just shook his head when he heard Kevin say that. He thought that maybe Kevin was right for his daughter after all. "You're such a braggart. If you're so rich, why the hell didn't you buy anything at the auction?" Isaac asked with a sneer. Just as Kevin was about to reply, Miss Wilson hurried over to him. She went up to his window and handed him an exquisite box. Then she said politely, "Here are the Dream Lover necklaces we bought, sir." Kevin stepped out of the car, took one of the necklaces out of the box, and gave it to Miss Wilson, saying, "This one's yours." She shivered and said excitedly, "Thank you, Mr. Williams. I still have some things to take care of. Please head back to the office without me," Kevin said nonchalantly. Thank you again. I'm so lucky to work for a CEO like you, Miss Wilson said excitedly as she walked away holding the Dream Lover necklace. Truman and the other two were shocked. Of course they knew who Miss Wilson was, but did she actually call Kevin CEO? When did this piece of trash who's freeloading off the Jones family become CEO of Williams Media? Isaac thought to himself as his face turned red. Truman was absolutely floored. He never expected this. Kevin took out another necklace from the box and walked over to Phoebe. With a big smile, he said, "This one's for you." Phoebe didn't reach out right away. Instead, she stared at Kevin for a moment and then asked, "You're the CEO of Williams Media?" "Who would have guessed?" Kevin said with a laugh. Then he held out the necklace and said, "Go ahead and take it. Isn't it beautiful?" Truman gasped. The necklace was worth millions, and Kevin just gave it to his daughter like it was no big deal. Thank you, Phoebe said hesitantly. She was nervous and extremely excited, and she was also tempted to give Kevin a big kiss. "Well, I've got to get going," Kevin said as he started to get back into his car. Wait a minute, Phoebe said as she blushed a little. "You just gave me this beautiful necklace. Can I at least treat you to dinner?" When she said this, Isaac started to open his mouth, but he couldn't find the words. "Don't tell me you don't want to grab a bite with me," Phoebe asked. Of course, a meal wasn't worth nearly as much as a dream lover's necklace, but Phoebe just wanted to spend some more time with Kevin, even if it was just for a minute. "Okay, I'm a little hungry too," Kevin said with a smile. Then he opened the door for her and added, "Hop in. Just tell me where you'd like to go." "Okay," Phoebe agreed excitedly. She completely ignored her father, who was still standing there watching. "Dad, tell me you're not going to let Phoebe ride off with that useless freeloader." Truman just grunted and turned around to get into his own car. At first, he didn't like seeing Phoebe hang out so much with Kevin because he believed the rumors about him and figured he didn't have many prospects. But now, it was different. Now that he knew that Kevin was the president of Williams Media, Truman had a change of heart. "Dad, say something," Isaac begged as he talked to Truman through his car window. "Take care of it yourself. I'm too old for this crap," Truman replied as he rolled up his window and drove away. At that very moment, Kevin was driving into town chatting with Phoebe. While they were talking, Kevin's phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and was surprised to see that it was Officer Emmett. "Hello? Why are you calling so late?" Kevin asked her. "Do you have a minute, please?" Officer Emmett asked him very weakly. When he heard her say please, he almost floored the accelerator. But Phoebe was riding with him, so Kevin naturally had to show more self-control. "If you said please, I know it's serious. How can I help?" "There's definitely something I need help with. I'll be waiting for you at the Salix Leaf Hotel," Officer Emmett told him before she abruptly hung up the phone. Kevin sighed and turned to look at Phoebe. He said guiltily, "I'm really sorry about this. Everyone wants to treat me to a meal today. Do you want to go with me?" "Who is it?" Phoebe asked. She had clearly heard the conversation, and it sounded like the woman had a very close relationship with Kevin. "That was Officer Emmett from the Chicago Police," Kevin replied. "Anyway, it's not really that late yet. Why don't you come along with me? I'm sure she wouldn't mind." "No thanks. I'll just go home," Phoebe said. "It sounds like you have some business to discuss." "Okay, then I'll drop you off at home on the way," Kevin said very honestly. It seemed to Kevin that Phoebe was really too agreeable sometimes, but whoever ended up marrying her someday would be very lucky. However, Phoebe was very disappointed. She totally didn't think that Kevin would actually do what she asked. Sometimes he didn't pick up on things like that. Couldn't he tell that she really wanted to go along with him? But she figured that it was better for him to take her at her word instead of thinking that no means yes. Kevin dropped Phoebe off at her family's mansion and then headed over to the brand new Salix Leaf Hotel. The whole drive didn't take too long considering it was rush hour. Ever since Rachel had started managing the Salix Leaf Hotel complex with Kevin's help, she had developed several buildings that were very popular among tourists. Chicago residents liked to go there too. When Kevin entered the lobby, he immediately spotted Officer Emmett, who was sitting patiently by a window. He quickly walked to the sofa opposite her and sat down. But when she noticed Kevin staring at her intently, she said irritably, "If you keep looking at me like that, I'll poke your eyes out." "Well, if you do that, how can I help you?" Kevin replied as he shrugged his shoulders. Officer Emmett didn't say anything. She just rolled her eyes at him. "Well, what's going on? I don't have a lot of time," Kevin said as he picked up one of the drinks she had ordered for them. "Geez, don't be so impatient," Officer Emmett complained. Then she realized that something wasn't right. It seemed that calling Kevin for help was getting easier and easier. "Well," Kevin said restlessly. "I'll get straight to the point," Officer Emmett said very seriously. Then she looked around and asked him, "Have you heard anything about the Myriads?" "Why do you ask?" Of course Kevin had heard of them. He'd been with 2 of their members just a couple of hours ago. "Would you be willing to try to infiltrate their organization?" Officer Emmett asked as she looked deeply into Kevin's eyes. Kevin spat out his drink. He looked at her in surprise and said, "You've got to be kidding. You have so many highly trained officers, how could I possibly be of any help?" "It's precisely because you haven't had any specialized training that you could be ideal for this," Officer Emmett said as she sighed helplessly. "We have good intel that the Myriads are going to set up a branch in Chicago in the near future. My superiors want us to get to them before they have a chance to gain a foothold. If we don't do it in the next 2 months, we might as well pack up and leave town," she explained. "I know what you're capable of. You're our only hope to get inside the group," Officer Emmett said very seriously. "Stop it. I'll help you. Just don't start crying. I'm not good with crying," Kevin begged her. Then he asked, "So where will I go to find them?" "The first prison of Chicago," she replied awkwardly. "I can set it up so you blend in." "What are you talking about?" Kevin almost jumped up from the sofa. "Are you nuts? You want me to go undercover in a prison?" "We don't have any choice. 2 days ago we arrested a man who's pretty high up in the Myriads. But no matter what we do, we can't get anything out of him," Officer Emmett explained. "And we don't have enough evidence to hold him for very long. You'd only have about 10 days. "But I haven't said yes yet," Kevin said as he took a deep breath. Officer Emmett had really surprised him with this. "I don't know who else to turn to. If you don't help me, I could lose my job," Officer Emmett said quietly. "Let me think about it," Kevin told her. "Anyway, shouldn't Sherwin Blair be able to take care of you if you lost your job?" But Officer Emmett didn't care about that right now. She just wanted Kevin to promise he would help. After he left the auction, Kevin was heading out to dinner with Phoebe, who wanted to thank him for giving her a Dream Lover necklace. But Kevin got a call from Officer Emmett, who wanted to talk to him about something important. So he dropped Phoebe off at her parents' home and headed to the Salix Leaf Hotel, where Officer Emmett told him that she wanted him to infiltrate the Myriads. She got up and walked over to Kevin. Then she grabbed him by his shoulders with all her strength and said, "Please promise me you'll help." How could Kevin say no to her? Okay, I promise. But stop shaking me. You'll break my arm," Kevin joked. "Really?" Officer Emmett asked in surprise. "Just tell me what your plan is." Kevin was starting to get a headache from this. Officer Emmett sat back in her seat and said seriously to Kevin, "Other than us and my plainclothes officers over there, only the chief knows about this undercover mission." "So what are the details of this plan?" he asked her anxiously. "It's very simple. In a little while, you're going to take a bottle of wine and walk over to the 3rd man sitting on the sofa to my left. Follow him and then hit him with the bottle," Officer Emmett explained. Then she paused for a moment while she was deep in thought and said very earnestly, "Remember, you have to be convincing. After that, our plainclothes officer will arrest you and take care of the rest." "So it's that simple, huh?" Kevin asked in surprise. "We just need a reasonable excuse to send you to prison. But remember, I will make a lot of people have their doubts about you," Officer Emmett said calmly. "But you can be rest assured that the surveillance cameras over this couch have been cut off, so no one will know that you were talking to me." Well, let's do it, Kevin said seriously as he picked up the bottle of wine from the table. Officer Emmett didn't answer him, but instead she quietly took out her phone. Kevin walked expressionlessly towards the man that she'd pointed at and said, "Sorry about this, dude." As soon as he finished speaking, he knocked the man out cold. Blood was flowing down the man's scalp. A few minutes later, several police officers rushed in and arrested Kevin, who was still swinging at the poor guy. Officer Emmett was frightened by what she saw. Kevin was too immersed in the role, and she was afraid that he would really beat the guy to death. By the time Officer Emmett walked out of the hotel lobby, Kevin was already on his way downtown for booking. Early the next morning at downtown General Hospital, Dr. Willow was pouring water for Alan and Susan to drink. Suddenly, several policemen pushed the door open and one of them asked, "Are you the parents of Kevin Williams?" Alan and Susan looked at each other, wondering what was going on. "May I ask what you need?" Dr. Willow walked over and said to the officer who seemed to be in charge. "Mr. Williams injured several people after getting drunk at the Salix Leaf Hotel last night. One of them may be paralyzed. He was arrested and is currently being held in custody pending arraignment," he explained. Dr. Willow couldn't believe what she was hearing. How could such a kind, generous person have beaten somebody so badly? "This must be a misunderstanding," Dr. Willow said nervously. "Mr. Williams would never do such a thing." "Are you his wife?" one of the officers suddenly asked. No, Mr. Williams and I are only friends," Dr. Willow blushed. "I can understand your feelings, but those are the facts. You can go down to the ICU and take a look for yourself," the officer said very seriously. The officer had never seen anything like it. It was a vicious beating. "Impossible. My son is gentle and courteous. He would never hit someone like that. You must have made a mistake," Susan informed him. "Sometimes family members are in denial. Can you please confirm that this is a photo of your son?" As the officer spoke, he showed them a photo of Kevin wearing an orange jumpsuit. Alan, Susan, and Dr. Willow were completely dumbfounded. At the same time that this was going on, Lily received a call from the police station. And when she told her mother that Kevin had been arrested, Dorothy almost fainted. It was one thing to have a useless son-in-law, but now he was in prison? How embarrassing! Meanwhile, Kevin was sitting in a corner of the prison yard, feeling the crew cut that they'd given him. The prison was fighting an outbreak of lice, so they were cutting everyone's hair at intake. As Kevin sat there, feeling the cool breeze on his head, he looked at the other inmate searching for his target. Finally, Kevin spotted him by the stairs not far away from him. It was Brett Stewart, the member of the Myriads that Officer Emmett had told him about. Officer Emmett said that he's pretty high up in the organization, but he doesn't really look that tough, Kevin thought to himself as he stood up and rubbed his scalp. Well, he'd gone to all this trouble to meet Stewart. It was time to go over and talk to him. As he was walking over to the man, Kevin was surprised to see that he was reading a book. How can I approach him so that he doesn't get suspicious? Kevin wondered. Just then, a basketball suddenly flew over Kevin and hit Stewart in the head. This made Kevin jump. Crap! Does this guy have enemies here? A big burly man walked over and picked up the ball. Sorry, man. I guess I threw it too hard. Merriweather? Kevin smiled bitterly as he looked at the man. He hasn't been released yet? Kevin didn't know was that Merriweather had already been released once since the fight at the Jones mansion, but he was such a troublemaker that he was sent right back to prison. Most people tried to stay out of jail, but Merriweather was different. He liked being there because he could be the boss. I'm fine, Stewart said casually, like it didn't really bother him. Merriweather bounced the basketball on the floor and then threw it into Stewart's face, giving him a bloody nose. Are you looking for trouble? Stewart asked him angrily. So what if I am? I'm playing ball with my buddies. What are you doing sitting here and reading? Merriweather sneered. Are you pretending you've got culture or something? In prison? I'm disgusted by the sight of you. Merriweather then looked at Stewart, who was standing there holding his book, and shouted, What are you going to do about it? Stewart was burning with anger. He was used to being treated with a lot more respect. "What the hell are you waiting for? Clean this blood off my ball," Merriweather said fiercely. "You're starting to put me in a bad mood." Merriweather's shouting drew the attention of the other prisoners in the yard. They all glared at Stewart, and clearly they were ready to fight. "All right," Stewart growled as he spat on the ground. Stewart knew that he was outnumbered, but right now he was only thinking about how to get through the 2 weeks he had left in his sentence. He could send someone in to deal with these guys later. "I thought you were tough, but I guess you're just a coward," Merriweather said arrogantly. The prisoners were all ready to see a fight, and some of them even wanted to jump in. "Your ball," Stewart said as he kept his composure and wiped the basketball off before handing it back to Merriweather. Merriweather snorted in disdain. He took the ball and bounced it off Stewart's chest. "What kind of wimp are you? You can't even hold on to a ball?" Merriweather yelled. "What do you want? Are you sure you want a piece of me?" Stewart couldn't stand it any longer. "I think you're going to get whipped," Merriweather said as he punched Stewart on the chin, making him spin around and fall to the ground. Just as Merriweather was about to say something else, he heard a voice that was full of contempt. "Merriweather, are you bullying people again?" "Who the hell said that?" the big man shouted angrily as he looked around. "Don't you remember me?" Kevin said mockingly as he put his hands on his hips. "So it's you," Merriweather yelled as he recognized Kevin. Merriweather completely forgot about his fight with Stewart and rushed at Kevin. Facing Merriweather's rage, Kevin could only shake his head. "Have you already forgotten what happened last time?" Kevin turned his body slightly to dodge Merriweather's fist. "I can't believe you want to do this again," Kevin said calmly as he kneed Merriweather in the gut. In the next second, Merriweather was sent flying 10 feet away, knocking over a few of the prisoners who were watching the spectacle. "Do you want me to help you remember?" Kevin said with a disdainful smile. Merriweather got up from the ground holding his stomach. He almost threw up his lunch. "What are you all waiting for?" Merriweather roared to his men. A group of prisoners immediately surrounded Kevin. "Please, gentlemen, I'm not looking for any trouble. I was just saying hello to my old friend over there," Kevin said in a calm and composed tone of voice. He wasn't afraid at all. Stewart kept watching Kevin with interest. Just as the group was about to attack, a prison guard walked over to them waving his baton. "Is there some trouble here? I'd hate to see any of you get more time added to your sentences." Kevin raised his eyebrows when he saw the guard. He had a very confident attitude, and the inmate seemed to respect his authority. Merriweather's expression suddenly changed, and he got very polite. "There's no problem here, officer. We're just joking around." "Don't think that you can bully the new guys just because you've been here so long. No one causes trouble on my watch. I don't care who it is," the guard said very seriously. "I understand. Don't worry, officer. We're all getting along just fine," Merriweather said as he smiled and walked the guard back to the door. Seeing that things had calmed down again, Kevin turned around and walked back to the corner of the yard to sit down. When Stewart picked up his book again, he gave Kevin a long look, trying to figure him out. That night, Kevin was lying in bed trying to get some sleep after a very long day when he suddenly opened his eyes. He sat up and saw Merriweather walking towards Stewart with a few of his men. He was holding a pillow in his hand. "Not good," Kevin said to himself. Of course he knew what Merriweather wanted to do, so he carefully got out of bed. There were no surveillance cameras in the prison dormitory, so there wouldn't be any evidence. Kevin couldn't believe that Merriweather actually wanted to kill Stewart over a little argument. "This will teach you to talk back to me," Merriweather growled as he covered Stewart's face with the pillow. While he did this, his men held Stewart's hands and feet so that he couldn't fight back. He didn't have a chance. Kevin watched this but didn't intervene right away. He waited for about half a minute before he yawned loudly. "What are you guys doing in the middle of the night? Could you be quiet so I could get some sleep?" Kevin knew that most of the inmates in the dorm were awake, but they were keeping silent because they were afraid of what Merriweather might do to them. "This is none of your business. If you know what's good for you, you'll make believe you didn't see anything. Just go back to sleep," Merriweather roared. "Hey, are you okay? It was just a little argument. Do you really need to kill him?" Kevin chided him. Then he made his move. He walked up to Merriweather and the others and punched one of them right on the temple, knocking him out on the spot. "Let's kill this piece of shit right now," Merriweather yelled as he rushed towards Kevin. Kevin calmly kicked Merriweather in the chest. At the same time, he ducked every blow thrown by all the other attackers, moving through them like lightning. In less than a minute, Merriweather and his men were lying on the floor writhing in pain. When he saw Stewart curled up in the corner gasping for air, Kevin secretly heaved a sigh of relief. "It's a good thing the guy didn't kill you. Otherwise, I'd have come here for nothing." "How did you get so much stronger since the last time?" Merriweather asked in disbelief as he lay on the floor clutching his chest. Before Kevin could reply, a few prison guards who had heard all the noise rushed into the large room. When he saw Merriweather on the floor, the head guard was stunned. He knew that the man was a martial arts champion and that many of the prisoners were afraid of him, but the guard had never expected him to be beaten up like this by a new prisoner. "You caused all this trouble," Kevin said as he kicked Merriweather a couple more times. "That's enough. Behave yourselves. If I have to come back in here tonight, you'll regret it," the guard said as he gave Kevin a strange look. Then he left with the other guards. Kevin wasn't worried about Merriweather anymore. He was more concerned with Brett Stewart and how he could get him to talk. Kevin agreed to be sent to prison to help Officer Emmett get information from Brett Stewart about the Myriads activities in Chicago. He saved Stewart from getting killed by Merriweather while he slept. Now Kevin just wanted to get the intel and leave. Kevin slowly walked up to Stewart and knelt down next to him. He gently patted his back a few times and asked him, "Are you okay, man?" "Thank you for saving my life. I owe you one," Stewart said gratefully, and he meant it. "No problem. I'm just a light sleeper. You should get some rest." He saw that Stewart was okay now, so he went back to bed. Kevin knew that if he acted too eager, Stewart would be suspicious of him. He had to take it slow so Stewart wouldn't think he was being set up. Seeing Kevin take the whole thing in stride like this made Stewart even more interested in him. He walked over to his bed and sat down. "Where are you from, bro? You're not like the other guys. How'd you end up here?" "I got drunk and hit someone." "I'm Brett Stewart. What's your name? As long as we're stuck in this place, we might as well be friends." After hearing this, Kevin immediately sat up in his bunk. He controlled his excitement and started chatting with Stewart casually. When he found out that Kevin was the bad apple in the Jones family, Stewart took to him right away and told him, "Don't let all this get you down. With your skills, you could really go places." 3 days later, Kevin's grandfather, Randall Williams, was sitting in an armchair at the family's mansion in New York. Sitting on a chair next to him was a middle-aged man in a business suit. He had put his pharmaceutical sample case on the coffee table in front of them. But there was something about him that was a little too menacing for him to be a simple pharmaceutical rep. "May I ask why you called me to New York on such short notice?" the man asked in a deep voice. "Please, this is a serious matter, Mr. Roundtree. One of my grandchildren has disappointed us greatly. He went so far as to bring outsiders into our home to fight with us. I need to do something to protect my family, and I know that you have the resources to help." "Our products aren't for everyone. It takes a lot of preparation and training, too," Roundtree replied as he shook his head. "That's why I brought you here." Then he hesitated for a moment before he continued. "I've heard that Light Street Labs has an herbal pill just for this purpose." "That's right, Mr. Williams. The effect of our new blend is quite unique. It can quickly give a jump start to someone who wants to develop their energy and focus, especially when they're in a situation like the one you're facing. However, you can only take one dose. To take more would be very dangerous," Roundtree explained. "Do you happen to have any with you today?" Then he added, "My family is willing to pay any price." Dalton Steele bringing his men to the Williams mansion had infuriated Randall Williams. He and his son Thomas had talked it over and decided that everyone in the family should start working on their health and fighting skills. This was part of an overall plan to dominate the families that were in charge of the business world, and not just in New York. He didn't want them to be afraid of the Steele family anymore. Roundtree gave Randall a funny look and said, "Mr. Williams, you're taking this too seriously. It's just one little herbal pill. If you bring your family into the Myriads, you'll have all the herbal medicine and resources you need." "What?" Randall said as his expression changed. "What are you talking about? The Myriads have a very dangerous reputation in the New Age underground. I've known you for years and would rather work with you and Light Street Labs directly. How could you ask us to join the Myriads?" "Don't worry, Mr. Williams. I have news for you. 5 years ago, I joined the Myriads, and I'm no longer with Light Street Labs." "Why did you do that?" Randall asked in shock. "Well, I was with Light Street for almost 40 years. Apart from some of the most basic production techniques and scientific background, what did I learn?" Roundtree suddenly seemed agitated. "I was the best tech specialist they ever had, but because I wasn't part of the inner circle, they never promoted me to the highest executive positions. But then, the Myriads promised me a huge sum of money and set me up with the best resources available. Compared to Light Street Labs, it's like night and day. Why would I still want to work for Light Street?" Roundtree said excitedly as he stood up from his chair. "Mr. Williams, as long as you're willing to bring your family into the Myriads, I guarantee that the benefits will be beyond your wildest dreams. Plus, it's the only way you'll be able to get the pill we were talking about. It's not really made by Light Street." "You're putting me in a difficult position. How could I bring my family into an organization like the Myriads?" "Nonsense. These days, with all the competition, the most important thing is to improve your strength, your stamina. If you're worried about your reputation, why don't you go talk to Light Street Labs? They'll have nothing like this to offer you," Roundtree said matter-of-factly. "In any case, as long as you don't tell anyone about joining the Myriads, your reputation will still be safe." "But this is a serious decision." "I understand," Roundtree said. "But I have to leave now. Please think about the future of your family. I'll come back in a month so we can discuss this again." Then he closed up his sample case and headed out the door. Grandpa Williams sat back down in his chair, unsure what to do next. Ever since Kevin had beaten up Merriweather and his gang, he had become the leader of the prison inmates. No matter what he did, whether he was eating or going to the toilet, there was always a large group of men following him around. This also gave Stewart a better rep because he was friends with Kevin. It was definitely survival of the fittest. After 2 weeks, Officer Emmett still hadn't found any evidence to keep Stewart in custody, so they had to release him. "Kevin, gotta go now, but I'll definitely find a way to contact you," Stewart said as he shook his hand and patted him on the shoulder. "Don't worry, I got a short sentence, so I should be out real soon," Kevin replied happily. But he thought to himself, "I've been in this hole for 2 weeks just to get some information from you. It sure wasn't easy." Stewart smiled and headed out with the guard so they could finish his out-processing. The next morning, Kevin was released too. As soon as he stepped outside, he got a call from Officer Emmett. "How did it go? Did you get any useful information from Stewart?" Officer Emmett's words were full of expectation. "No, that guy plays his cards close to his chest. I hung out with him for almost 2 weeks and we got along really well. But every time I asked him about his past, he changed the subject," Kevin answered truthfully. "Nothing at all?" Officer Emmett asked. She was extremely disappointed. How could her plan have failed? Kevin hadn't found out anything the department could use. "Nope, nothing. The guy's very careful about what he shares," Kevin said lightheartedly. "Anyway, I just spent 2 weeks in jail. How are you going to make it up to me?" "What's that? You didn't even complete your mission and you want me to make it up to you?" Officer Emmett scoffed. "Are you giving up on me already? What if I find out something about the Myriads in the future?" "Kevin, Do you have any idea what you're talking about? It's almost impossible to find out anything about them. We've been investigating them for so long, but we haven't found out anything useful." Officer Emmett hesitated for a moment before continuing. "But let me warn you, you can't have any contact with them from now on. It's too dangerous." Then she hung up the phone without any warning. Damn, what the hell was that? Kevin wondered as he put his phone in his pocket. He thought for a moment and considered calling for a ride to Williams Media. After being gone for 2 weeks, he had no idea what was going on there. Just then, a tall, lanky guy and a tough-looking man suddenly walked up to Kevin. The tall one said, "Mr. Williams, our boss would like you to come along with us." "Who's your boss?" Kevin asked curiously. "You'll know when you get there." Then he gestured for Kevin to get in their car. Half an hour later, Kevin arrived at a bar a couple of blocks from North Michigan Avenue. The men led him into a luxurious private room. "I told you I'd be waiting when you got out. When I found out you were sprung today, I made arrangements at my favorite bar," Stewart said as he smiled and walked over to Kevin. "You didn't have to go to all this trouble," Kevin replied with a smile. While he was talking, Kevin's eyes swept across the private room and he looked at the other dozen or so people who were there with them. He was really shocked to see such an intimidating group. How many of them are experts in herbal medicine and martial arts, he wondered. "What are all of you waiting for? Hurry up and meet your future enforcer," Stewart said bluntly. They all started greeting Kevin very enthusiastically, calling him their enforcer. "What's this about, Brett?" Kevin asked Stewart a little hesitantly. "Please forgive me, my friend. The prison wasn't a good place for us to talk. That's why I deliberately concealed my identity," Stewart said with a faint smile. "Oh, then who are you really?" Kevin asked, even though he already knew the answer. "Have you heard of the Myriads?" Stewart said proudly. "I'm one of the top bosses in the organization. The other members have to call me sir, but you and I don't have to worry about that. You can just call me by my name." "The Myriads?" Kevin said as he acted surprised. "That's right." Stewart put his arm on Kevin's shoulder and walked him over to the sofa to sit down. "Since you and I are brothers now, this is your chance to put your skills to work. From now on, you'll be the enforcer of the Chicago Myriads." "Are you sure I'm the right man for the job?" Kevin asked him guardedly. He had no idea what to think. He'd only just gotten into New Age medicine very recently, and here he was about to be put in a respected position in an underground organization that had some of the best experts in the world. "Of course you are. You could really move up in our organization. You may not have enough experience right now, but I'm sure you'll do fine after you learn more." After saying that, Stewart patted Kevin's shoulder and said, "But don't worry about all that right now. Take your time." "You're really okay with this?" Kevin asked, but still hadn't agreed. "Of course," Stewart replied as he pointed at the people who were in the room with them. "You'll be in charge of everyone here. There are also about 300 more in the building." Kevin was overwhelmed, but he did his best to look flattered. "There's something else," Stewart said as he reached into his pocket. "I had this ID card printed for you. It's from our parent organization, Infinitude Pharmaceuticals. No matter where you go, all you have to do is show it, and they'll know you're with us. A lot of people just know about us from our reputation in what many would call some very shady activities, but we're making great strides in cutting-edge combinations of traditional herbs and modern medicine. The market's going to explode, especially with rich and powerful clients, and we're at the forefront," Stewart explained to Kevin in detail. "How can I resist such a generous offer?" Kevin said with a smile as he accepted the card. "That's great," Stewart replied as he stood up from the sofa and walked toward the door. One of his aides entered the room with 3 beautifully dressed women, but Kevin had a feeling they didn't really want to be there. "I've arranged for a bit of a celebration later today at the Whistler Hotel," Stewart said as he gestured for the rest of the group to leave the room. Then he turned to Kevin and said, "In the meantime, please enjoy yourself. Then come and find me when you're ready to leave." Stewart smiled and closed the door as he left the room. Kevin looked at the women one by one. He sighed as he walked over to them and said quietly, "I had no idea they'd do something like this." You should leave while you can, and be more careful in the future. Don't let them put you in this sort of position again." The women all looked at each other in astonishment. One of them, who seemed to be the leader, stood up to speak.
Hi, Kevin here. If you're wondering what happens next, then stay tuned on the Pocket FM Universe channel for more episodes.